here is my differentiation about pleasure versus joy. Yeah. So what shall I start with? Shall I start talking about joy first or pleasure? Okay. Let's start with okay, we'll talk about pleasure first. Yeah. So like we start with alphabet A before we reach alphabet Z, right? So you have to start with alphabet A to finally start writing the poetry, है ना? For सबसे पहले we'll understand the alphabet, then from alphabet we'll go on to words, from words to writing sentences and paragraphs, and finally turn it into a piece of art and write poetry. Yeah. So similarly, let's start with pleasure. Yeah. नहीं, pleasure होता क्या है? What exactly is pleasure? Huh? I look at pleasure like a dark chocolate. Yeah, dark chocolate, but the one which is stuck in tooth. Huh? And what happens when something gets stuck in tooth, especially the chocolate? Your tongue inadvertently keeps going there. You are distracted. You are hooked, if I may say, right? So what happens if it will get stuck there? Ultimately, it will lead to some sort of cavity in your tooth, and it will have its own repercussions, it will have its own consequences. So yes, you did have a good feeling, you did feel loved, yeah, while having that dark chocolate. But if it remains stuck in your tooth, then yeah, it brings repercussions or consequences in the form of tooth decay, which is sometimes accompanied with pain, and sometimes it rots to an extent and begins to stink our mouth that we have to undergo a tooth surgery or completely remove that tooth from our body. And you know what? We blame it on the chocolate, but it's not about chocolate, it's about you. You didn't brush, you didn't have that moment of pleasure responsibly. Yeah, you didn't brush later, maybe. Yeah. So, or maybe you had it in excess. Yeah, a piece of chocolate eaten well wouldn't have perhaps caused it. You know what? By simply brushing, yeah, and eating the measured chocolate brings an element of mindfulness when you are showing that love to yourself. So the moment you bring in this mindfulness, it starts to translate from pleasure to happiness. Yeah. So happiness is something which will usually not have such dire consequences as opposed to pleasure. Pleasure is very temporal and momentary, right? I mean, I feel sometimes like, even if I just go by this example of chocolate, it's something which can make us a little more hollow. Yeah, it takes away from you, like it took away the tooth, the rotten tooth, right? And what's gone while having that pleasure, right? Like having those being a couch potato, watching something mindlessly. Yeah, so it definitely gives you pleasure, that moment, but those important moments are killed when we go on binge watching on Netflix, right? So pleasure, it does give you momentary feeling of high, but the price you pay for it is really high. Yeah, because whatever it takes away from you is something you can never replenish. And I look at it more like drawing water from a dry well. Yeah, and see, it's already a dry well, what will you draw out of it? Yeah, so that is why बस वो chocolate खाते ही वो happiness खत्म हो जाता है, and it brings back again the same bland taste in your mouth. But then when it goes to happiness, And when you bring in that mindfulness, you know, every time you had that chocolate and then you brushed and you had even the amount of chocolate you had, even that was mindful. So it it leads to a happier association with chocolate, a longer association with chocolate, and where there are no consequences, right? So that is happiness. But pleasure ho gaya, happiness ho gaya. Now what next when it comes to happiness? Yeah. So the highest form of happiness, they say, is joy, right? So how is joy different from other things? See, let me give you the example of a plant when it comes to joy. So joy is like planting. Yeah. It's like you put in the seeds today, and it's like making a good investment in stocks or in commodities, whatever you want to invest in. Yeah. So it's like making a good investment into something. And you know, what does good investment bring? Good returns. Yeah. High ROI, right? So what is this investment? This is an investment in the form of good karma. And you know what, when you kind of spread, when it comes to joy, no, it's like you are not just having that chocolate alone. You are, when you have that piece of chocolate and you're like, oh yeah, this is nice. Yeah. And then you feel that, okay, let me share it with others too. Then it becomes something bigger where more people are involved. Yeah. And let's say if it's for something even better, let's say it is something which brings some really good results, like maybe let me think of a good example instead of chocolate. Yeah, okay, like a plant only. Let's see, a mango tree. Yeah, so I know this mango tree is going to give shade in times to come. And yes, mango is also considered very auspicious in Hinduism and in a lot of other cultures as well. The mango leaves are used, and of course the fruits are also really delicious and healthy also, right? So when you plant that tree, not just thinking about yourself, you will get, because you have planted that tree outside your own house, you will definitely receive the benefits, right? But when you plant it thinking ki, oh, someone else may also benefit from it, then it translates into joy, it translates into something bigger and better. Yeah. So even, you know, and you're not like really doing going out of the way to give to the people here. You have just had that beautiful intention when you planted those seeds, and see, so many people besides you also benefit from it. They really get back, and it's a very natural, auto, free flowing kind of love where you are nurturing yourself, and but you're nurturing it with such good intentions and with such high vibrations, with unconditionality and with unselfishness, without many boundaries, and not just thinking selfishly. So what happens, the results automatically change. So like they say na, the results when it especially comes to love is always hidden, not in the action but in the intention. So is the case with pleasure, happiness and joy. Yeah. So it's called, when you are in that vibe, it becomes like real, I mean love, real wala love. Yeah. So that is joy. And you know what, if you want to taste joy, yeah, you are highly recommended to come and visit one of my joy workshops. Just come to it to taste joy, to feel deeper joy, yeah, to activate the joy within you. Yeah.